It's Friday the 13th, but we don't believe in any of that superstitious nonsense. I'm Scotty, that's Motta. Behind the cameras is Ethan, who's been working his magic to make sure that we can do this live stream tonight. Technical wizard from the northeast. Thank you very much, Ethan. Obviously, tomorrow it's the 189th Manchester derby. I'm the most optimistic I've ever been since post-Ferguson going into this one. The form that we're on is incredible. And I heard a stat today that United have never gone into a Manchester derby with this form. It's the best form United have ever brought into a derby. I mean, so we're going to get beat.
This is it. This is the trouble, innit? The stars are all lining up where you think, you know what? City have just lost. United are flying. Marcus Rashford's on fire. Casemiro's the best midfielder the world has ever seen. Why not? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If it's going to happen, why not now? Old Trafford, early doors, my birthday, which matters.
Oh, it's your birthday as well,
yeah. Don't, you know what I mean? Don't worry about that. Big 2-1, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, you think this is it. This is tailor-made for us to win. So, yeah, we're going to fall on our face.
It is, though. I mean, if you look at everything, that it's the best setup we've ever been to face City at their best. Even though in the past, when you look at the teams that Solskjaer has put up against them, and we've won the game on paper and form, it didn't look like it should have happened.
Mate, we beaten them at the Etihad with, you know, Fred, McTominay, Dan James, Lindelof and Maguire playing. No disrespect to those players, but, you know, against the City team, which I would argue was stronger than the one they've got now. I know Haaland's different because he's probably the best striker they've had during that period, but in terms of the actual 11, I think overall it was probably stronger then. And we beat him 3 times there. Okay, one was a sort of the second leg of a League Cup game, if we're going to be nitpicking. But 2 big wins in the league. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, I don't mean the scoreline, but in terms of what they meant. So, yeah, I mean, it's doable, of course. I fancy United in a one-off game. I think United, when everyone's fit, can beat anyone. I think the issue is when we get 1 or 2 injuries as a squad, I still feel we're lacking. Hence the reason we've gone out and got Wout Weghorst, who, you know, is a good player, but there's a reason you've gone and got him in January. And actually, there's talk of even Martial not being 100% tomorrow, and if he's not fit, Weghorst can't feature, then already you're in a bit of trouble, aren't you? Because you've probably got Marcus down the middle, and that's your only striker.
Yeah, that's the fear, isn't it, where the goals are going to come from. I'm confident in terms of, like you mentioned, Casemiro being the greatest Premier League midfielder of all time, minus Roy Keane, which I think we can agree on.
Yeah, I mean, I class Brian Robson as Division 1 more than Premier League.
Yeah, that's the only reason I omitted Robson.
So I think you've nailed it.
But Casemiro didn't play in the last derby when we got absolutely spanked, and rightly spanked. I think even 6-3 flattered us.
Do you think that Ten Hag learned his lesson from that? Because it was a little bit, and I don't use this word often with Erik Ten Hag. I think it's the only time we'll use it. Slightly naive, I felt, to go into that derby with the midfield of McTominay, Eriksen, and Bruno. We just got sore apart in midfield, didn't we? I know we got sore about elsewhere, but De Bruyne was just having the run of that midfield with no one really sticking a foot in.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And Ten Hag looks like a man who learns his lessons from games rather than sort of carry on with the blinkers on. That's why we got battered there. And the optimism from tomorrow stems very much from the midfield. De Bruyne's having a stinker post-World Cup. He just seems to be in a right rut.
Long may that continue.
And if you look at City's form, it's transferred into the rest of the squad. Southampton, they didn't register a shot. The draw against Everton. Chelsea in the second half, they were great, but the first half against Chelsea, they were absolutely they were bad. So I'm not going to say that Man City are by any means a club in crisis, but if there's a time to have played them this season at home, it's now.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I think it's weird because you've got, you know, you're always wary, aren't you? The wounded animal thing of they haven't been playing well. They've just had a loss. Do you know what I mean? They've faltered slightly. I mean, a draw at home to Everton is not the end of the world. It's not great, though. They've faltered slightly in league, and you're like, look at now. No, now would be the perfect chance for them to respond. They get a win at Old Trafford, and all of a sudden, the season's completely rejuvenated. But you can't ignore what's going on. You can't ignore the fact that, like you say, against Southampton, not a shot registered. And City have always been one of those teams where, when we talk about City changing it up, we don't mean they're taking out. This isn't a case of, you know, you're taking out Dwight York and bringing in Jonathan Greening or something, or you know, it's complete reserve. You know what I mean? Reserve team. If he's not playing the likes of Haaland and the likes of maybe De Bruyne, he's still got Bernardo Silva. He's still got who else? Riyad Mahrez, or you know, Jack Grealish might start instead of Phil Foden or whatever.
Yep.
These are still £100 million, arguably world class players that are swapping around there. So it's not like he's played his complete resis. The reason City have dominated domestically over the last sort of 7 or 8 years is because they've had such a strong squad that he's been able to play who he wants in the Carabao Cup, other than that time when Jose had him over, and win. He's been able to play once in the FA Cup and win. He's been able to play, mix it up in the league and still get over the line. So it might just be an indication, like you're saying, that things are slightly faltering there a little bit. I hope they are. Don't want to get too premature, but it is the first time I think they've gone out in that Carabao Cup, or one of the second time they've gone out to an actual defeat rather than on penalties, if you want to do like that. Since 2016, 17.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to attach ourselves to for optimism in terms of how they're playing. Do you think Haaland is anything to do with this?
Yes, a little bit. I think that when you bring in a player like Erling Haaland, he's going to change your team, your entire team, the way they play, because he's such a focal point. Now, that's the sort of the bad thing. The good thing is he's going to score you lots and lots and lots of goals. So as long as your defence is fairly solid, you're going to get at least almost a goal, but more than a goal a game, I think, at the minute out of him. So it's worth it. It's worth changing your team because you're getting such a talent. The problem is, if he has a quiet day, or if you rest him, then the other team, the other players struggle to adapt. Or you might have a situation where, like, there was Anfield, where he lost as well, where if something, or I saw there was a game against Leeds. Leeds is a better example because they won that game. But I watched the game against Leeds where he kept getting chance after chance after chance, and at first he didn't take them. He missed a few chances. And they weren't playing great. And you think, they're not actually playing that well. He's getting chances, but as a team, they're not playing well. But then he scores. And that's it.
Everything's forgotten.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And I feel there's a little bit of that because the City's biggest advantage was, and make sure you're hitting the like button as well. There's quite a lot of people watching, so hit that like button. The greatest thing for City was, or the best thing for him was, the fact that they had so many match winners almost on the pitch. You know, we've seen it ourselves. Bernardo Silva is almost like a bit of an unsung hero for many, capable of getting you a goal, capable of turning a match. De Bruyne we know about. Who else? Foden we know about. Even someone like Mahrez last season, Jesus could get you a goal. Raheem Sterling's that type of player who'll score like 30 goals in all competitions. Do you know what I mean? And people go, he's not actually a finisher, but he still get you a lot of goals. So they had all these players who could win the matches and get goals, where now it seems to be, they still got, don't get me wrong, still got the players. Foden scored a hat-trick against us, for God's sake. But they seem to be a lot more reliant on De Bruyne to Haaland. Yeah,
that's what's interesting is that in seasons past, they had they had winners, and them players are still there, but they're not stepping forward when Haaland's not doing it. So it's whether there's some sort of like distrust into Pep's new system. I'm not too sure, but there's a lot of positives to say. Southampton set up really like stoic, didn't they, against City, and they were the better team and deserved to win the game. So Ten Hag's got to have looked at that and said, right, well, if we can play a very similar sort of type of football and nullify every sense of attack, and they're not playing well, because City seem to throw their prams out the window. Throw their prams out the dummer.
Yeah,
been a long day.
Mate, you're not alone. You're doing well. Keep going.
Yeah.
No, I thought I'm just having a look now. I will get some of the comments. Loads of people comment, so I will jump in the chat. The Southampton midfield, and I've had to look it up because I can barely remember the names. Diallo, Lavia, obviously James Ward-Prowse, did really well. Looked strong. We're winning the individual battles. We're carrying the ball forward, and I think that. You know, I'm not saying you copy what Southampton do, but it gives you an indication of winning that midfield, getting a foothold in that midfield can really affect City. Now, obviously, City didn't start with the likes of De Bruyne and Haaland, so it's going to be harder. But that was one area we struggled in, and we have struggled historically against City. You remember under Jose when they came to Old Trafford, and I think it was, I think we were something like 7 points behind him. So obviously, you win, you go 4 points behind him, you lose, you go 10, and we lost. It was around that. I might be slightly wrong with the points thing, but the loss meant we were almost done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're out of the race.
We ain't catching him. But I remember it was David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne in the midfield, just ran us ragged, just tore us apart. Do you know what I mean? And you can't, no matter whether it's David Silva or whether it's Kevin De Bruyne or it's Bernardo, I know David Silva's not anymore, or Bernardo Silva or Gundogan or whoever, you have to get a control of that midfield because as we saw at the Etihad, if you've got Kevin De Bruyne who's running through your midfield and you've got Erling Haaland in front of him, you're going to be in all sorts of trouble. I'll get some comments then and I'll fire a couple of questions towards you because there's some questions in the chat. Glenn F says, we have got a top team, not squad. Be positive, bro. Yeah, that's my point. We've got a top team. I 100% believe that. That's what I'm getting at. Manchester Maverick said, is Scotty going to give his verdict on Giggs' poem from the brew earlier? We're not going to put him through that. Steve mentioned you on the brew because there's a
alongside Ryan Giggs.
There was a poem that Ryan Giggs wrote.
I remember it well.
Yeah. and Steve wanted to get an actual poet, you said, we'll get Scotty to critique it. We're not doing that because you don't need that in your life.
I'd have done it.
Right, okay. All right, then. We are going to do it. We'll do it on the brew, though. We'll do it on the brew next time. We'll get Scotty on the brew, and he can go through it.
Is that the one with the totem pole?
Yeah.
All right, nice one. I was trying to work out what the imagery we was trying to work with.
I don't like talking about it.
Okay.
but you know, it's just, I still like...
I just imagine him writing it in crayon.
Yeah.
That's like...
It's just horrible, isn't it? But yeah, you will get you on the brew and you can critique it because we had Steve reading it out and a little bit of my soul went every time he said another line and the totem pole one.
Did you not say I've had enough fucking poetry?
No, he was saying... we always talk about you, really. Like, we know we love you anyway, but it's like Steve loves the fact that like you're the least type poet we know. And you've
I'll take that as a compliment.
No, it is. It's meant as that. Do you know what I mean? We don't associate poets from Longsight, no offence. To you also Longsight. Santa Knox says proms out the window is like a private eye commentator balls. Solo in the chat, always love Solo. Don't forget to check out the Man United agenda. City goals this season are not being distributed like seasons before, as everything has to go through, he said, through Holland. I presume he means Haaland, unless he actually means they have to go through Holland to get the goals, which is going to be a right headache for a minute. Hussey says, I'm so nervous, man.
I'm nervous, and I'm nervous because I'm optimistic. I'm usually cynical. You know,
you're
cynical.
Right. And I think this is part of your charm. You're very cynical.
I love how that's part of your charm is that you managed to look at the good in cynicism.
No, you have. Yeah. You're honest with it.
Yeah.
You are very cynical, and it annoys me when you're right.
I know.
Because I get carried away, get giddy, say things that I later regret. Yeah, and then you'll point out that you were right and I was wrong.
I know,
and it's really annoying.
Sorry about that. And you like that about me, do you?
I like the fact you'll point out how deluded I'll get after we win three on the bounce.
Yeah,
and I'm like...
Yeah, Solskjaer to stay.
Yeah, booking me flights to the Champions League final. Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And you're like, hang on a minute. What? No.
Yeah. I'm nervous about how optimistic I am.
That worries me, because you're usually not that guy. But...
The stars seem to be aligned. You can use all the cliches that you want, but...
Can we not just drink the Kool-Aid, though, with Erik ten Hag? Is this guy not just the guy we've been waiting for?
Yes.
It's like
he's the guy with the guys, though.
Yeah, you're right. He has got the team.
It's like he's come in like Hannibal and then brought in BA, Doc. Who else was in? Face.
Howling Man Murdoch.
And who was the other one?
Doc.
Who's Doc?
Doc's out of the Seven Dwarves, isn't
he? Face BA.
Face BA and Howling Man Murdoch.
That's Doc.
He's on Doc.
They referred to him as Doc in the 80s.
No, they didn't. They called him Howling Mad Murdoch. That was his name.
I called him Doc.
You called him. We've had this argument before, me and you on Twitter once, and you went, well, I say this, and it's like, you can't argue with that. Because if you say that, then that's what you say.
Yes.
Right? So...
Well, there you go.
If you called him Doc, that's fair enough. That's all right. I can't dispute that fact. I remember once when I was at my auntie's and she told me this was the last A team when I was little. She went, this is the last one, this. Like, she said it was a joke. She said, like, there's not making any more after this. This is the one where they all die. Right? And I remember crying my eyes out and then she had to tell me it was a joke.
Wow.
Honestly. That was my birthday as well, funnily enough. My 30th. Anyway.
You weren't sober then, were you? Just imagine you shaking. What do you mean?
No, give me another can of that Stella. Can you see though, right? A scenario where if it's sort of cagey, we settle. Where we go, they go, and we go. Do you know what? We get to say half time, 0-0. And you think, it's not the end of the world, this. Do you know what I mean? Because we're sat here now, feeling relatively confident. You get in there, Old Trafford, it's pumping, you're like, come on into these.
Yeah.
If after like 20 minutes nothing's really happening, or you have a couple of chances, whatever, it settles down, the game settles down, slightly cagey, you get to half time. Can you see a scenario where both managers and players, I know the winners might just think, both sets of players think, you know what, a draw's not the end of the world here?
No, I think a draw probably damages City's title ambitions more than it does United's top four ambitions.
Are you still... sorry, one question at a time. Go on,
yeah,
sorry.
so I think City will have an eye on the title, so a win tomorrow is more important for them in the scheme of the season if we really United as being title challengers. So I think there's more on that. So I'd be more inclined to say Pep rolls the dice to try and beat United if it's still 0-0 with 60 minutes. But I think Ten Hag wants to win games, man, and he comes across as the guy who's making decisions to beat the opponents in front of him. I don't think we've set up any game this season to play for a draw. Or can you remember one?
No, I think the closest we've come to that is the second half against Brentford. I think it was damage limitation. Like, just don't lose the set. You know what I mean? Like, just
damage limitation is not playing for the draw.
No. I mean, like, just don't fucking concede any more goals.
Yeah.
Let's get back in this game. It's like, literally, let's just end it.
The issue is that you were talking before about strength in depth with City. Haaland for whoever else is on the bench for City. We've got Rashford or Elanga. Do you know that's the difference? He's got a lot more cards to play with than Pep has than Ten Hag.
No, I agree with that. And I think this is the one thing that worries me. I think if Martial is out, then you've got Marcus down the middle, or that is.
And we've not even talked about the form Marcus Rashford's in either.
No,
do you know what I mean?
I want to ask you about that because one thing we've always agreed on is whether he's going through bad form or not, he is a good player. He's got that in him. It's just the consistency. We saw it last season where his form fell off a cliff for a multitude of reasons. You can understand why. But even I'm a little bit surprised, and I love Marcus Rashford, just how good he's been this season. I thought he might get there. I thought, I said it in the summer. I said, I still like Marcus, still believe in him. I said, but he needs a good start under Ten Hag, because if he has a poor start under Ten Hag might go, you're not my guy. Yeah. Because you've got to prove yourself again, haven't you, to a new manager. But he's done it in spades. He's been absolutely fantastic.
You know what it seems like? How old is Marcus now? 24?
25. I think he's 25.
It feels like the seasons leading up to where he is now. I've been scatty. He's had really good ones, or his ones where he's really fell off for a number of reasons.
Yeah, 25.
But what I'm seeing in Marcus now is his potential beginning to be fulfilled. Do you know what I mean? Everything we expected and hoped that it could be as being a young lad from Manchester coming through and seeing little glimpses of what he did when Van Gaal brought him on and the other games that he's played year in, year out. It was always Patcher. And now, now for me, I love all the rest of the players that we've got in the team. Local lad, big United fan, going into Derby. That man's carrying United on his shoulders, and it doesn't feel like a weight. It feels like a responsibility that he wants to have. If I'm Marcus Rashford and I've been banging in all them goals at a good World Cup, right? Going into a derby, he must be supremely confident tomorrow. You'd hope so, wouldn't you? You're like thinking, right, I'm having this. You know, I'm going in there.
100%, right? Because everything you've just said there, you saw it when we lost derbies, and he'd do the post-match interview.
He carries it, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he'd be fuming. He'd be gutted. Like, I hate, I'm a United fan. I hate losing a Manchester derby. I hate as a fan, let alone playing in it. And there was a lot of derbies where, especially at Old Trafford, we hadn't turned up. You remember the one a few years ago when they were going for the title with Liverpool, and all right, I might not have been that gutted we lost that one, I'm not going to lie to you, but it was still, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth. And also the way we just didn't really give him a game. The one last season under Ole, after the 5-0 against Liverpool, I think it was, I can't remember who it was talking about it on one of the podcasts of the day, they said that 2-0 against City felt almost as bad, if not worse, because City barely got out of second gear. And he's beat us at Old Trafford. Like, they didn't, it was nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is easy. It's like a training exercise. So we've had some stinkers against him, and he's obviously felt that. This is his ideal opportunity to go for it. I think you're right. I think he'll be revelling in it, because I was just looking here as well. City, yes, they've got a good defence, but they can see goals.
Yes, they do.
Do you know what I mean? This isn't a...
John Stones is out as well, I think.
Oh, is it? Right, okay. And he's been a big player for them recently, hasn't he? So you look at it and you think, City can be got at, but lesser players than Marcus Rashford have caused City problems this season. Do you know what I mean? At Old Trafford, with the likes of Casemiro and Bruno and I don't know if Eriksen, I don't know if he... What do you reckon? Do you reckon he goes with different midfield tomorrow?
No, I don't think so. At home.
Do you reckon he does, Casemiro, Bruno and Eriksen?
I think so. I think Casemiro's...
I thought he might bring your boy in, us, even maybe...
Fred?
McTominay, because I just wonder whether he feels like he needs that double pivot type thingy midfield, like...
I don't know. I'm just going to say, I don't know. He's not. He doesn't come across as a pragmatic manager. And again, it goes back to the did he learn his lessons against City the last time when we got absolutely spanked. But we didn't have Casemiro in the team, and sort of he was mentioning today in the press conference how much of an influence Casemiro has had on the overall. I don't want to do him a disservice by calling him a water carrier, but he does a lot of the shit work that nobody else doesn't get the highlights.
It's not just that, you're right, but it's not just that as well as some of his passing.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah. It's phenomenal. Like his range of ability that sort of falls under the radar. We've seen his passing the other night in the cup against Charlton. The goals he's been scoring. So I think he's going to play a central role. Him and Marcus tomorrow. I think it'll be Casemiro, Eriksen, Fernandes. And then depending on how the game starts, if it goes the way you say, where they're sort of cancelling each other out and nothing's happening, I'd be inclined to sort of bring Fred in for one of the midfielders in the second half, because I think Fred's been good off the bench. And you know I'm a big fan of his, but I don't think he starts games. But I think he can be quite impactful with the runs he makes and dragging players out.
Don't forget to check out our Patreon. I've just put a link in the chat. Thanks as well, Glenn F, who's a member of our Patreon. You get extra content on there. We're going to double up next week as well, because we've not had as much time this week, so there'll be a couple of extra videos going up next week and extra articles as well. So if you get a chance, go and have a look at, what is it, £2 a month?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we've gone big time now. We're not doing it in our bedrooms anymore on Zoom, are we? We're in the studio.
Maybe if we carried on doing it in our bedrooms, we might be able to charge more.
But then how do you justify it? Justification is, we're big in the game. We've got access to the studio and that. And
but people
have got to pay for that in our bedrooms on Zoom.
People pay for that stuff though. Someone was telling me the other day that is like a fetish site for feet.
Who?
I know,
what?
People pay more than £2 for that.
What, to look at feet?
To look at feet, or to get your feet doing stuff like drawing with them and
drawing with your feet. I'm not a big feet fan, to be honest with you.
If anyone's out there and you would be up for that, I've cut my nails.
Really?
Mate, they were talking grands.
Grands? Okay, now.
What would you do?
I'd get more of my feet out for a grand.
It's like your ass.
Get my ankles out for that. Dave O'Hanlon says, only Man U fans. LJ says, only Manx. Glenn F says, it's cool, but you need James in his pyjamas. James will be back next week for an extra vid as well. No, listen, I hear you. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that's the only sort of debatable point for me, is whether he does swap up the midfield slightly. I think that with Delo out, is the back four's pretty set, the back five.
Yeah.
I imagine Wan-Bissaka comes in for Delo. Luke Shaw, obviously, at left back. Varane and Martinez, centre back. I don't think there's any, we can expect any surprises there. Front three, is it just Anthony Martial and Rashford if Martial's fit?
If Martial's not fit, what's the situation there then?
I think he moves Marcus into the middle and I think he plays Garnacho.
I'd like to see Garnacho.
Yeah.
Given form, I think Garnacho's probably played better than Martial post. Even before the World Cup,
Garnacho played. Do you know what I want to see with Garnacho?
And Palestra when he came on the other night was really good.
He's almost forgotten man money for Kundo Palestra.
But them two I seem to be mirror images of each other on either flank. Do you not think the way they play football very direct?
No, it was good. It was really good to watch. And it's like the United way, innit? If you know about United way,
don't start this shit.
Hey, come on. Players running down that wing. Come on, don't tell me that don't remind you when you were growing up.
I know, yeah, but you're going to go down DNA and it's going to turn...
No, I've never... the only thing I ever say about United DNA, because I think that is a nonsense, is if you are going to say one trait that United have had throughout their history...
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's giving academy players a chance. But from growing up, I'm used to seeing wingers flying down that wing.
Yeah,
when I see the likes of Palestra and Garnacho and even Marcus when he plays down on the flanks a little bit, it reminds me of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It reminds me of the glory years. Which,
yeah, and you can still get them on VHS.
You mentioned Martial. You said you don't reckon he's been quite at a races since he come back, or not as good as Garnacho. Since we came back from the World Cup, not him. He didn't go, did he?
Not as impactful on the performances that I've seen. It was interesting when we had Nathan Ellington on the other night, and I know a lot of people sort of agreed with his viewpoint that Martial drags players away, so you don't really get credit for that because you're not touching the ball, and it's sort of it's an art in itself, but it doesn't really get the compliments that it deserves at times. But I think that's great what it does that, but it's a bit of a luxury. Do you know what I mean? For a striker who doesn't provide enough, it's all right taking players away, but you need to have more than your game in that. If you look at the impact that Garnacho has had in terms of getting penalties or just... What I really like about the subs that we've been bringing on, especially under Ten Hag, is just the injection of enthusiasm. And I think sometimes, and I know he gets done for not smiling, but I just mean in his direct play. You don't see that with Martial. I think if he goes missing in the game within 10, 15 minutes, you can predict how the rest of the game's going to go for him usually.
Yeah, it's weird with Martial because I get what Nathan Ellington was saying when we had him on round our way. And I noticed it, I think it was against Bournemouth, because I was sat in a different seat, I had a better view, and you sort of seen like what he does where he drops deep and he brings others in, and you think, you know what, there's a quality there. But from a sort of basic argument, you want your strikers in around the box, you want them getting goals.
Harry Kane's great at dragging defenders out.
Just saying
Harry Kane's great at dragging defenders out, right?
Yeah.
Harry Kane also scores 30 goals a season.
Have you just read this? Serious Lee said, total luxury. Harry Kane is good at that and also scores 25 goals.
Right, I do not have access to them comments at all.
That's mad. Glenn F says, yes, Martial's off the ball play is pretty much all he gives. King Dino says, Martial at his best is a joy to watch, but right now he's not really firing. In his defence, if you could call it his defence, not really overly criticising him, he has got a decent record against City, hasn't he?
Yes.
He has. Yeah, he does usually turn up in these games. I expect Erik to stick with him. I don't see him changing it that much, unless, like we say, I think he did a press conference today, Ten Hag, and he said that there was an issue with Martial's leg that we're going to look at. So he said the only one he definitely won't play is Delo, and Weghorst has not been done in time. But he said Martial will have to have a look at him. If he doesn't play, that's annoying because, okay, you can debate whether he should start, whatever, but injuries have been the issue with Martial this season as well. And it's another game he's missing if he's not available, where, you want your big players in big games. These are the games that he should be, looking at, and he's just not had it with injuries, as it this season. Had a really good pre-season, and then was injured almost straight away, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, form and injuries are going to be sort of his legacy at United. It feels like that, doesn't it? It feels like the games are running out for him to try and turn this around. I don't think he'd get this far. When he came back from Seville, I was surprised that he was still at United.
I think Erik Ten Hag handled it really well with him. I think Erik Ten Hag more or less said to him, look, you're my guy, go for it. Give him pre-season, did really well. And then he got injured, and it was like, I think he played 45 minutes against the
I can see why Ten Hag likes him. I can see what Ten Hag wants him to do. But how injured he is in the form, it's just how much time do you spend on that?
Well, I think, depending on who you read, I think in the summer we are going to go for another striker. Because Weghorst's not long term, obviously he's just a bit of a stopgap.
No.
But I think, we could end up going for someone big. I'll get to something in a minute. Just let me go through a couple of the comments and I'm going to ask you a question. Talk MU, evening Scotty and Motty, always good to see you talk. Good to see you, brother. Alex Tootle said Martial has a leg injury with 25% of playing on the FPL site, so they're not too confident there. Obviously, he's 25%. Chris Cope says, good live chat. Good to see two Mancs having their say. I want to ask you about Harry Kane, because you mentioned him. Someone in the chat's mentioned him. A couple of people mentioned him. Now, a few weeks ago, I was having none of this. I was like, it's not happening. People keep talking about it. People saying, you know what, in the summer we could get Kane, we could go for him, his contract's running out. If Spurs are going to get any money for him now, it's now or never. He's 29, he's still got something to offer. Obviously, he's banging in goals. Like this season, he's having his most productive season, I think, in years. Not that he's not been productive in previous years. Can you see that happening, United getting Kane?
Yes, I think, because I think Levy's a shrewd businessman. I don't know, because he'll want every single penny that, if he puts a price on him, he'll expect it. Obviously, that was what happened, why he didn't end up going to City a few years ago. But I said it on Round Our Way, if our expectations is to go head to head with Man City, okay, they might not be top of the league at the moment, but they've got the best team and they've got the best striker in the league. Harry Kane is the second best striker in the league. This is what Manchester United used to do. They'd identify who was the best in whatever position, whether it was the Premier League or all across Europe, and they'd sign them, and that's why Manchester United were the best. Now, we can't sign Haaland. Harry Kane, whether you like him or not, or his age, is the second best striker in the Premier League. Do we need a striker? Yes. Do we need to score goals? Yes. Will that team accommodate Harry Kane with the likes of Eriksen, Fernandes? Hopefully, Anthony will be crossing a bit more of the balls. You've got Casemiro who can dink one in. You know what I mean? The balls can come in. And from what I've seen recently, I picked up on the watch-along, is we're being a hell of a lot more intricate in and around the box, short passing around the 6-yard and 18-yard box, because we're not clinical. And that's what Manchester United need. And if we've got ambitions to win the league, I can't see there being too many out there. Vlahovic, I think, might be the other option. But again, that's someone coming from another country to England, which might take a while to embed him in. For me, Harry Kane could be the Robin van Persie for Ten Hag.
Wow. Bold statement, but I kind of get where you're coming from. I think the only question for me is, could we get him? That's why I've been a bit like, I just don't see it happening. But a few people suggesting it, and I think a lot depends, doesn't it, on these new owners as well. New owners come in, because that would be a pretty good signing.
That's a marquee signing.
That's what I mean. Like, if you come in and you go, right, we're going to give you some transfer budget, getting Harry Kane in as you sort of your marquee signing, it's a statement, isn't it? And like new owners always like to make a statement, don't they? Unless you're Todd Burley, in which case you might like to make 412 statements.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know the relationship between Daniel Levy and Harry Kane, but I imagine it was a bit soured when Harry Kane didn't return back from his holiday because he was trying to force through the Man City. And then, so I imagine there might be some friendly agreement of gone on there if something happens. Do you know what I mean? Because he might still get the money that he would have got for Harry Kane 2 years ago.
Yeah,
a year ago.
It was weird, wasn't it? Because I think Joe might have said it on the podcast the other day. Harry Kane signing that deal, was it a 6-year deal that we signed or a 5-year deal? It's probably a massive mistake from that because it probably ended up costing him chance of silverware and a big money move.
And it's his brother that's the agent. I'd hate to be around there at Christmas.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Like, you signed that
Chucking
deal.
Crayola at each
other. You signed that deal, which has stopped you getting a move, stopped you probably getting more money, and and stopped you winning trophies unless they do something this season. I mean, they're still. Well, they could win the FA Cup, couldn't they?
That man wants to win the Premier League, man. I don't care. I don't care. No, he didn't want no FA Cup. He wants the Premier League. And
Jordan Clark says, "I hope we go for Bellingham." I can't see us getting him. To be honest with you. I mean, never say never. And like you say, we might get taken over by a billionaire who goes, "Here is loads and
Spurs
loads."
Spurs are in debt as well, aren't they? Am I right in saying?
I think so. Aren't they still paying off the stadium?
Yeah, and there's rumours also with someone from I think Qatar. We're looking at investing in Spurs. There was a rumour of that a couple of weeks ago, which could be worrying for United because I think we were looking at some owners from over there. I don't know.
I know there's talking.
I'd have him if he was available. I don't care. It's not my money. 80 mil, 100 mil. That's the one position now. Manchester United are crying out at the beginning of the season. To quote Ralph Ragnick, we needed 46 new players. Do you know? Paraphrase Ralph Ragnick. Do you know? But most of the positions of the jigsaw for the starting 11, you'd say are being filled.
Yeah.
It's that number 9 now that leads the team. Marcus Rashford off the left, Anthony off the right. Magic, man. We're winning the number 20.
And also, like, so far, the signings.
There's not been a shit one.
No, it's weird, isn't it?
When's the last time we had, like, one good one out of the stock that we bought? When's the last time we had a really good transfer window?
We've had players that are flattered to deceive, haven't we? Like, they've come in, they've done all right, and you go, okay, yeah. Do you know what I mean?
You put it politely, flattered to deceive.
Well, you know what?
You're a nicer man than me.
I always have this thing where, like,
Alexis Sanchez, flattered to deceive.
He had that. He got man of the match against Yeovil. Did you forget that when he came? But, like, Lukaku scored 9 in his first 10 games.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Let's not pretend he didn't. Like, he did, and then he fell off a cliff. Because I remember when he signed, everyone's going, look, I didn't think he was that good at Everton. He's banging him in, he's mint. And then he just stopped scoring goals, and then he's like, he's weird because if you look at his record on paper, it still looks reasonable from United, 42 goals in 96 games.
Yeah.
But when you scratch beneath the surface, 1 goal against the top 6, 9 games without scoring, like, twice.
Yeah.
It weren't great. Even the likes of everyone hates on Harry Maguire now, and he's the sort of persona non grata, or whatever you call it. But, the first season and season and a half, third and second, people going, all right, yeah. Third season, awful. This season, now people are going, he's got to go. Do you know what I mean? So we've had signings where you go, all right, yeah, this is going to work or this looks good. And then it's turned out to be shocking. The difference is we've had a lot of signings this summer and all of them look good. And all of them, bar probably last year, maybe Andy to a lesser degree, you sort of were established as good players. Do you know what I mean? Like
there were names.
Yeah, you know Casemiro's a mint player. You know Christian Eriksen's a mint player. Even Lisandro Martinez, he's not a kid, is he?
No,
he's 25, 26, I think. Done really well in Holland, was well sort of regarded, and obviously the manager knew more because he bought him. So yeah, it's like players you go in and you go, right, I can see what you're trying to do here. Because at one point when it looked like we were getting Rabiot and your man Arnautovic, you're like, really? You know what I mean? Like, it's working for Adrian Rabiot, John Merton.
To be fair, Rabiot's having a decent season.
He did good World Cup, didn't he?
Yeah, he's having a decent season.
I always think that upgrade from not getting Rabiot to getting Casemiro is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what the logic was. The thing is, it's like, if there wasn't the kickback for the racism thing of Arnautovic, then does that happen?
It's weird because the way they made it out of the club
is that they listened to the fans.
We're briefing everyone was the fans didn't want him because of his racism, so we didn't get him. We listened to him, yeah. Now, I agree with the sentiment on this occasion. I didn't really want an Arnautovic, and it does bother me things like that. And I don't want to be a hypocrite.
So it should.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? No, because some
I do have a problem with racism.
Yeah, I do, but like some fans will go, whatever. But I'm not going to sit here and slag off John Terry and Luis Suarez and all that and then go, our racist, all right. I didn't really want him. But I don't like the idea. I mean, I get it on this occasion. I just don't like the idea of basing your transfer policies off what fans are telling you. Do you know what I mean?
No.
And I'm a fan who didn't want him.
Yeah.
So I agree with the idea of not getting him. I'm glad we didn't. But it did worry me a little bit. I'm like, I don't want to take this too far where it's like, we're going to do a Twitter poll. Should we buy Harry Kane? Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you've got targets, go and get them.
I swear that sounds so Glazers. Like sponsored by Timex.
Sponsored by Timex watches, whatever. Should we buy this player? We've listened to the fans, and 73% of you on Twitter said we should get him. So here's our new signing.
Yeah, and if it don't work, it's your fault.
Yeah, it's your fault. You can blame Marshall _1997 or whatever for voting.
But it's just been sensible. That's the thing that United have lacked for so long, just how sensible the signings were. We had Ten Hag identified where we needed players and then got them. And it shouldn't be as difficult as we've made it.
I love the way you say it. I know, it's like, when you say it like that, it's so obvious, isn't it? It's like why weren't we doing this earlier?
Listen, if my handbrake is fucked on my car, I don't go buying a new tyre. Right. Do you know what I mean? And that's exactly what United have been doing. No, buying exhaust instead of a freaking...
I've heard that.
No, you haven't. I just made that up.
No, not that. I've heard it. You let me finish my fucking sentence.
No.
I've heard it like that, buying a new door for your house. Someone was saying that to you, like your house is falling apart, you keep buying these new front doors. It makes no sense. We've needed solid foundations, and we've got him. Right, get in the comments before we wrap up. Give us your score predictions.
Yeah, man.
What's your score prediction?
I think it's going to be 1-0 Manchester United, Marcus Rashford. Yeah. That's one prediction. The other prediction is I think it's going to be 4-1 to one of the teams.
I said 4-1.
Someone messaged me before. I said he's having his fourth prediction this week.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm having.
I'm going 4-1.
Yeah, all right, good. I'm going to clip that up, and you can get sticky if it's wrong.
I didn't say to which team.
Yeah, we'll either get battered or we'll batter him. There's my two choices. I'm going to go. Well, I said 4-1 on the preview, I think, and Joe said to me, "Fuck off." So yeah, I'll just. You know what? I'll be conservative on this one then. I'll go with a nice solid 2-0. Yeah. Marcus to get both goals, one either side of half time. Lovely little day at the office for us.
Oh man, I'm nervous as excited. I can't wait, but fingers crossed, eh? But,
fingers crossed. Yeah. I'll get through some of the comments here. Sirius Lee says 1-0. Phobos Taco Man says 2-1 United. LJ 3-2 United. Jordan Clark 2-1 United. Ericsson Rashi. Red Devil Janik says Man United 2-0. Ericsson and Rashford. Glenn F says you'll see mine on the watch along if you pick it. Andre Moore says 2-1 United or 3-0 City. So after that, 5-0 United. I've put another link in for the Patreon. Go and check that out. Extra content. Make sure if you're not doing as well, you're subscribing to the channel. And go and check out Stretford Paddock, where me and him are always on. If you want to watch the watch along tomorrow, you're going to have Joe McGrath and a few others on that as well. And then we'll have post-match reaction from all the people as well. Scotty.
Yeah, man.
Where can people find you on the socials?
At Arkid, ARGH Kid.
You know where to find me, J Motty. That's been Scotty. I've been Motty. This has been a Derby Day preview. We're going to beat him. Manchester is red. Marcus Rashford's on fire. Thanks for watching.